All right, so yeah, thanks for joining us today. My name's Eric Veal, and happy to have you guys with us today. Our talk today is about bootstrapping, and that's kind of basically running a startup company or a startup project without being capitalized from external funding. And so, as I mentioned, I'm Eric Veal, and today with me also speaking is Barry Zimmerman. Barry and I have known each other for about a decade now, if not more, and
More.
live in a similar area just north of Seattle now. Barry, you want to say hi?
Hi.
Hi. And it looks like a lot of people from the Tech Accelerator program. So we're thankful for Rain Catalyst for their sponsorship, and it's kind of what brings us today is the Washington State Tech, or excuse me, the Rain Catalyst Tech Accelerator program. And so some people are here, but we hit record. We figure that this content is relevant for pretty much anybody looking to scale or start a business and understand kind of when to bootstrap and when to not. It's kind of when to do it the hard way or on your own dime versus looking for other people's contributed capital. Um, yeah, so I'm ready to get going. How about you, Barry?
Yeah, let, let's do it.
Okay. So we're calling this talk Mastering the Three Conversions, and you'll soon learn what these three conversions are. And uh, as I mentioned, I've been bootstrapping. I grew up a son of a couple entrepreneurs, self-employed people, and so I kind of grew up thinking that you kind of got to do it yourself. You got to build and make your own product. You got to go find your own market. You got to sell your own products. And these people weren't solopreneurs. My mom had a business partner she always worked with, and my dad had as many as 25 employees, I believe. But yeah, I kind of grew up thinking that there was no you had to do it the hard way. You had to bootstrap. And so for about 25 years now, I've been involved in different groups and stuff about investment capital, investment money. And the Tech Accelerator through Rain is kind of all about teaching uh, the students, if you will, or the participants in that program how to basically get investment capital, how to ready their business to take on funding. And so I'm referring to myself as a lifelong bootstrapper, and Barry referring as a lifelong bootstrapper. Barry, you want to say just brief stuff about your
Yeah,
experience with bootstrapping?
and the senior only because I'm older than Eric. Yes. Okay. Um, yeah, so just briefly, my career spanned a whole variety of things, including being a public school educator, and almost 30 years working at UPS, United Parcel Service, that got me all kinds of incredible experience, not only working with one of the best run companies in the world, but also interacting with companies that were struggling and figuring out ways to help them solve business problems. And that was really valuable. That helped lead me to my entrepreneurial uh, career as a business owner and consultant and coach along the way. So yeah, it's but between the two of us, we've got plenty of experience. And yeah, we haven't done everything that there is to do out there, and we don't know everything, but we likely know somebody that does.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, feel free to reach out to us afterwards. Just any questions or any additional help you guys need. And I think one more quick comment, I guess, about my background as it differs from Barry's is when I was a freshman in college was pretty much when the internet started. So that's kind of back in '95. I was 18, and my whole career has really been spent implementing web technologies for companies, and so that's what I've been doing. And then Barry's touched a lot of that as well, like you mentioned his UPS background. But I think Barry has a lot of really nice skills that complement my own as far as just operations management, people management, and we're going to get to that in the talk. I mean, these are big parts of what the bootstrapping story is really all about. So, a lot of questions. Barry and I tried to trim this down. We're still stuck with 9 things. So I'll just rattle off what. Let's trade off on reading these out loud, Barry. I'll do the evens. You do the odds. Okay.
Okay. All right. So, what is bootstrapping and who does it? We'll definitely talk about whether it's right for you or not.
The next one is what are the top three priorities of a bootstrapper, and that gets into what these three conversions are. The kind of the theme of our talk.
Yep. And then one of the number three, how much and whose money is needed to bootstrap. That's really the crux of bootstrapping. That's the defining difference, and uh, figuring out when and if to use somebody else's money. We'll talk about that.
Yep. And then next one, number four, where can I help along the way as a or sorry, where can I get help along the way as a bootstrapper? So just resources for people going it alone or that way.
Number five, should I really waste my own money on my own business? And the answer is it depends, and
Yeah.
we'll get into that. And money stuff has become a bigger part of my life right now because I'm the treasurer of a nonprofit, and it is pretty eye-opening actually. So we'll touch on some of that. Number six.
Yep. Sounds good. And then the next one, number six, what are the benefits of bootstrapping compared to all the other alternatives?
And number seven, what do I give up if I take outside funding? Which is a really good conversation.
And then how can I make it last? So how can I make bootstrapping last?
uh, and your business in general. And then where do you start? How do I get started? And
Yeah.
where do we get started is next slide, Eric.
Yep. Sounds good. Okay, so first, just a definition of what bootstrapping is. Morning, Tom. Bootstrapping means funding a business entirely or largely with the owner's own funds, or the business's generated revenue rather than relying heavily on external investment. So, again, this is like really the overarching theme of our talk is that there's a mode of running a business that's you got your own money, you've saved up some money. People do this with hobbies. I think obviously it's like, look, I want to have a vegetable garden and I'm going to spend on doing that. But here's somebody's trying to be enterprising and entrepreneuring and gain a profit, but they're spending their own money or money that they're raising through capital. So growing up, this was how I thought all businesses run. I barely probably knew about venture capital or angel investment. And so it's definitely been, for me, 25 years of education about what's this ecosystem of all these investors and people that support businesses, and what does that look like, and is it a good idea to engage with them, or a bad idea, and how you decide. Barry, anything to add?
Yeah, so this really does touch on a lot of different issues. The money issue, but also just resources in general. And bootstrapping doesn't mean that you're a solopreneur or necessarily a solopreneur.
Right.
Yeah, bootstrapping typically involves some three very specific roles or personalities and skill sets, and we'll talk more about those in a little bit. But more often, bootstrapping, because there's three very specific skill sets and experiences needed, it's rarely one person, especially for a business that's going to grow beyond the lifestyle job type of business, and beyond just being a hobby.
Yeah, I agree with that point. I think there's the hard way as a solopreneur, or like the really hard way is as a pure soloist. And then what we get into is this strategy of kind of teaming up to bootstrap and what that might look like. So we wanted to cover this one, just all the different types of funding that are available. So here we kind of go up the 10x kind of orders of magnitude scale. And so we're just kind of down here talking about like what it's like to bootstrap and start that way. Everybody's heard, I'm sure, of friends and family, angel investment, venture capital, all the way to IPO, where you got a public offering and people are buying your stock on the stock market, M&A and grants and all this kind of stuff. So there's a ton of funding vehicles, and we're pretty much saying in this talk, like, look, forget about it. You don't need any of it if you can build the right network and build the right company and this kind of thing. So that's a bit what we're advocating, but your experience may vary, and there's nothing wrong with these other methods. Barry, anything to add?
Yeah, and just for for the context of this presentation, we're really focusing on that pre-investment activity, which is typically bootstrapping. Most
Yeah,
people don't jump right to crowdfunding or
right.
an investor information. And
Right. You
in
you could
fact,
kind of call it like getting ready, I guess, to take outside capital. Like, what would it be like? What's it like to be in this stage where you're constantly trying to do growth, and if you are trying to position yourself so that you can take outside capital, what do you need to do as far as those steps go? Just so you're
Yeah.
not going
So
down a blind alley.
right. This is pre-Shark Tank.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. So, Barry, you want to take this slide?
Sure. So, it apparently based on the brief research that we did, and there's somewhere between 30 and 50% of successful businesses were bootstrapped. And you'll see in the next slide that there are some very not, noteworthy and familiar companies that have grown to being ubiquitous in our lifestyle as Americans, that were started as bootstrapped businesses where they uh, got things going and actually got to a place where they were sustainable but not scalable, and that's when they made the leap. So it's interesting, that to kind of look at. There's lots of examples out there, and you can do your own research for your own industry to find out, how companies became successful, learn from their mistakes, and learn from their successes, and that's a great source for that.
Yeah, so you're definitely not alone. If people are stuck in bootstrapping mode and feeling like their thing is going and going and going, you wouldn't be alone in that, and there's nothing wrong with that per se. So there are a lot of other people out there doing it. And so here's a few examples of companies we found that at least started. I'm not sure how far. Again, we saw in the spectrum, it's like if IPO, then not bootstrapped, but these were companies that were started by bootstrap money, are basically their own funds. So again,
Yeah.
you can get big.
Yeah. So the one I'm most familiar with obviously is UPS, and it started in 1907 in Seattle with two brothers and another guy, three guys that started it as a little messenger company delivering prescriptions and plates of food in Seattle, Washington. And now it's one of the largest companies, the largest logistics companies in the world. And it was a privately held company all the way up into 1999. So
Hmm.
for over 90 years, it was a privately held company, not a public company. And so it's a pretty remarkable story in itself. And there's lots of other good popular success stories on this list, as well as others. Starbucks is not on the list, but they were started by three guys in Seattle as well. So the lot of really successful bootstrap companies out there, and you just don't think about it because it happened so long ago.
Yeah. Uh, I guess go ahead with the intro here, Barry.
So the three conversions has to do with uh, the three personalities, skill sets, or roles that it takes to successfully run a business. And so, from the role point of view, the three roles are the maker, the person that has the skill and the vision and the understanding how to make the product or build the service, or even deliver the service. The seller is the person that gets out and can convinces customers to pay for the product or service. And then the treasurer is the person that takes care of all the money. And all the way from resource management and sources of money, as well as the bookkeeping, accounting, financial transactions. And there's a great uh, source of information out there about the activities of our treasurer, sellers, and makers. So we call this the three conversions because really the process or the activities of building the business are converting these three issues. You're converting a concept, right? A concept of an idea of a product or service into the actual product. You're converting um, suspects, though, the entire market or a population of people into customers. And then you're also converting investment money into profit. And it's not just revenue, it doesn't just stop there, because in order to be successful, you got to have some left over in order to invest and keep scaling the business. So those are the three conversions: the product conversion, the customer conversion, and the profit conversion. And if you look back to that list of businesses, that were successful and others that you may know, that they likely had at least two people, if not three, and they all kind of assumed roles very similar to the ones on the screen there, the maker, the seller, and the treasurer.
Yeah, it's this kind of divide and conquer team sport I think that we're talking about that, my skills are mostly kind of as a technologist or product maker, say, Barry, as he mentions, he has a side gig with a nonprofit now doing the treasury, that's a skill of his. And then he also and I also have the kind of customer conversion sales skill now as well. And so you got to wear many hats, but we can also like run ourselves out and wear ourselves too thin if we're trying to wear all the hats. And so there's nothing wrong with partnering. That's obviously one of the consequences of that is you're giving up equity share, roughly speaking. If you're one, it's 100. If you're two, it's 50. If it's this kind of thing. And so if you're willing to give up parts of your company as creating an ecosystem that's shared of how the owner's equity works, or how the partnership agreement, say, works, for example. That's part of what we're talking about today. One other quick thing I wanted to add here is that product conversion, you could also think of it as product lifecycle management. What's it like to take an idea or a concept and then uh, eventually, commercialize that and ultimately phase it out. So you're doing the product lifecycle management, the customer relationship management, like a Salesforce type of company, is plan for customers, understand the customer, which is kind of marketing, inbound marketing, sell to them, care for them, which is customer service and support. And so there's customer relationship management. And then profit conversion is really delivery at the micro scale of like order to invoice kind of things of, hey, look, we're taking money and we're delivering the service and we're doing billing and we're managing our accounts receivable and all that kind of stuff. And but that overall kind of treasurer role, like Barry says, I think helps kind of land the point, and that there's ultimately a maker, engineer, inventor person, and somebody that's the best kind of public speaker and the most outgoing, extroverted platform person, and then somebody else that's a good bean counter and kind of control person. So
Right. I mean, another set of labels would be the CEO, the CFO, and the COO.
yeah,
And
it's about that
right.
that easy. So kind of team building 101.
Yeah.
And so here's a
And
little bit more on
Eric, go
product.
back to the last slide.
Yeah,
Just
you bet.
yeah. So the questions at the bottom there, how you know you're winning and how you know you're being successful. Obviously, just like any good endeavor, you've got to set some goals. And you've got an idea. You've identified a big gap in the market, or a product idea, or some pain that people are suffering that you can solve. And so you've got this big idea, plot out a path to get there,
Yeah.
and along the way you measure. So that how do you know you're winning is you keep score, and you keep score by measuring the things that are important to getting to the past or getting to the future goal, right?
Yeah.
So how do the how you know you're winning is really all about keeping score of the things that matter in your business, whether it's activity based scorekeeping, or result based scorekeeping.
Yeah, so you can think of it as a balanced scorecard, kind of like he's saying, kind of
Yep.
qualitative measures, quantitative measures across three big buckets: product, customer, profit, or just money. And your particular buckets might be a little bit different. Like the three buckets that I'm using in my business right now are people, content, and technology. So technology is kind of product to me. People is more people and culture and marketing, kind of everything. And then the content side is more to me the money, for example, or measuring everything. But anyway, so think on that, and then I'll just kind of talk a little bit more about the product stuff. So as we mentioned, from the concept to the product, and this is about product lifecycle management. This might just start with just kind of mock-ups and ideas and concepts that you share with people, going through your alpha, beta, release candidate, generally available phases, to thinking in terms of minimum viable products. Microsoft has a thing that they call rings of validation, which is kind of your pre-release, small private beta kind of things, and then towards generally available, but kind of thinking of your things in the stages that you're releasing, and how you might do your non-disclosure agreements related to how you're sharing content with people. And then the phases of a product lifecycle management that, as I learned them, is define the product. This actually starts with a product portfolio management thing. So kind of all your opportunities of things you could make. But for one, you define it, you realize it, make it, engineer it, commercialize it, market and sell it. And then while it's in market, you need to phase things that don't work out and phase things that do work in. Barry, any additional thoughts on kind of product life cycle management or the product conversion bucket here? Is
Not,
my
not,
audio bad? Okay, go ahead.
yeah, no, nothing more to add from me
Okay,
from
no
what
worries.
I,
So that's that one. I'll let you, Barry, take the customer slide.
yeah, yeah. And ultimately, this is, understanding your market. This, the whole customer conversion is um, making sure that the product or service that you're going to deliver um, not only meets the needs that you intend them to, but to um, really understand the 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 forces and the inspiration behind what it's going to take to convert the customer's money into your money,
Yeah.
and you're using through your product. And um, you know, and some of the language that I use along the way is understanding who your perfect prospect is. And the analogy I use is the archer's target or the bullseye, and the bullseye being the very center of who your perfect prospect is. The second ring of the target is the um, people that you should also work with that are very close to and may become your perfect prospects. And then the third ring are people that you could also work with. And then, so you just divide it into, basically three categories of customer types: the must work with, should work with, and could work with. And then the piece that everybody forgets to do is what's off the target. So the archer doesn't aim just at the target, they aim at the bullseye. And so you've got to know who's not a good customer for you or a good prospect, and understand that you've got to be able to craft messaging that's specific for your bullseye, not for the whole target, but just for the bullseye, and the rest will come along. And you can control the conversations better that way if you are laser focused on your bullseye, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
and from a product perspective to the same, I'm where did I write that down? Minimum viable product was written somewhere, but as a product maker, similarly, one thing that I've done repeatedly with startups that I've worked on or startups that I've contributed to is just kind of the minimum viable product idea that as if you truly do know your perfect prospect in the current phase, you know what you need to make to them to please them. And so keeping your audience as small as you can and being targeted on that exact audience that you're trying to please as part of your growth stages. And then one other kind of tops down tool that's written here is, and for those that don't know, the buzzword is TAM, and pardon me if I get it wrong, but TAM is total addressable market, SAM is serviceable addressable market, and then SOM is somebody might need to bail me out. I can't remember the O, but this is like your actual market share. So of the big, big, big market, how big is it, and how do you slice and dice that? And then the of like what's actually attainable as a bit a reasonable or attainable business market in kind of a SMART goal sense, and then versus your what you've actually obtained. That might be the O. Thank
Yeah, it
you.
is. Yeah, yeah.
Good. Woo.
According to Steve, that's
Thank
exactly
you.
it. Hey,
I,
Isa,
yeah.
is- Isol? I'm sorry if I mispronounced your
Oh,
name.
Ushul. That's Ushul.
Has a question about or a comment about Tam
Yeah,
Samsung.
about how to resources
Yeah,
for getting Sam Samsung. If anybody'd like to come off mute, if they had any kind of tips and tricks for gathering that data that seems right or seems good enough, um, feel free to either put it in, I guess just put it into the chat for Ushul. We'll just keep going on. I don't have anything off the top of my head. So profit conversion one here, this one is again about money, right? This is about ROI and really ultimately the mechanism or engine of a business that matters anyways, is you put gasoline in the car and or electricity and you want to drive. And so that's kind of why we're here is we're putting putting money in and we want to get money out. We don't want to obviously just be burning fuel and spinning our tires. So it's all and ultimately about profit conversion. And so this is the investment, really from you on bootstrapping this thing, from your early stage customers that are also helping you bootstrap through revenue and earned income and that kind of thing. This is about supply chain management and doing delivery in an excellent way. Supply chain management is broken into sourcing materials, making the actual product, and then delivering it. Making is a product thing. Deliver it could be for a service or a product, and then managing returns. So that whole cycle, that's your revenue cycle, kind of at a high level. And then Barry, you want to take the rest as far as cost avoidance and containment?
Yeah, so really these are the activities of the treasurer, right? And just as the business scales, it's not one person necessarily doing all these things, but it certainly is responsible for them. And then as cash flow dictates, you have the opportunity to subcontract out, getting an outside bookkeeper, a fractional bookkeeper, fractional CFO. There are a lot of really good fractional experts out there now to help with different pieces of it, whether it's ongoing, like fractional bookkeeping. If you've got a lot of transactions that are starting to pile up and you need to, you know, those kinds of activities to, or, people doing the work to help you manage, you know, manage the numbers and manage the decisions that you're making. So yeah, the lot, lot lots of things to consider, lots of things going on within the business, and it can get overwhelming really fast. And I think we'll see, in just a bit that one of the real successes to bootstrapping is, and I'll tease this a little bit, is to get revenue. Don't rely on
Correct.
investment, but get revenue as soon and
Exactly.
as fast as possible.
Yeah,
A little
that's
bit,
the real truth. I think like the gold plating kind of thing of like the perfect website or the perfect pitch deck or the perfect, you name it, patent your idea before you ever test it once or build it once, things of that nature. I think what we're advocating here is kind of this customer first, profit first kind of model where you might, and I've had some of these conversations with Ushel, say, for example, like she has a bigger vision that includes a product, and then in the short term, what would it be like to offer her knowledge and services and ultimately product as kind of a custom solution early on to get proof and validation and that kind of thing. And I've done many of those things with my product ideas as well. One other quick thing I wanted to call out here, I guess, is two things. Is like the operating plan when the bullet is staging. So what's it like to operate in this current stage where your funds are X? That's your operating plan or operating kind of budget for the present moment. And then once you get to some level of success, how do you stage yourself into the next one and make sure you don't burn out on the current one, that you're continuing to level up and build stages into your business. So that's just good like long range planning thinking in terms of like staging your business and recognizing the current stage or phase that you're in. Okay, next slide. So the question, how much and whose money is needed to bootstrap? So how much money, there's no fixed amount, of course depends on business or industry. Again, the name of the game is kind of keeping your costs low. Don't establish some big burn rate that you can't sustain. If people have a day job, for example, that's obviously, money that can be contributed capital towards doing some moonlight style thing that you might be doing. I know a variety of people that have corporate jobs that do that, whether or not their employers know or don't know, they typically don't know. And so that can be a strategy for a lot of people. And again, like where's the money coming from? It's your money, it's early stage customer money, friends and family. I guess that can fit in here. That feels a little. That's kind of like free gifts, no equity, if you know what I mean. Like rich uncle or whatever. You're getting lucky there without any promises in exchange. We spoke yesterday in the Tech Accelerator about Jerry's opinion was that kind of advisors should be just that, and shouldn't be an equity. There should be some kind of fair contribution there where people truly want to help you succeed because they believe in you or your idea. barter and sweat. Like this is another huge one. Barry, you want to say more about that? This is kind of your area.
Yeah. So, look for opportunities to, trade services with people,
Yeah.
trade expertise for, product or coaching or whatever you have to offer along the way, or it could be even access to, some of your uh, potential customers and product, could be a very complementary sales process that way. So
Yeah.
look for ways to do that. Sweat equity is an interesting one too, because I mean, you could find people that are willing to invest their time and skill set ahead of time for a piece of the action down the road. And there's a really good model for that. I know Eric's not as big a fan of it as I am, but there's um, a product called slicing pie. In fact, I have. Yep. There's See if I can get that to get in focus.
Nope.
Not yet. Not yet. Where's my?
It's there though.
Yeah.
See,
Well, anyway,
I've used slicing pie on previous startups, and it's neat. It's a way to monetize, I'm going to say, or measure, quantify, and basically turn things that are potentially kind of seemingly loose or qualitative into quantitative capital, and a way to keep your cap table really using a system that they define in that book, and it
right.
is neat. I'm not anti-Barry.
Yeah, it's Mike Moyer is the author, and there's a couple different books, and there's actually a web platform that he uses that or promotes that you can subscribe to that helps where contributors to your business can log in their time and contribution. They can be cash contributions, time contributions, content contributions, and you put those all in, and it just slices the pie. And the whole idea is to slice the pie between the people that are contributing, but to grow the pie to a point where it converts into, a profit. Right. So
Yeah.
it's a way to measure all that and fairly treat everybody so that those that are contributing can monitor their own contributions in comparison to everybody else, and just keep track of what their piece of the profit
Yeah.
pie is eventually. Yeah,
Tom raised a good point in the stream here, just about IP contribution. So, it sometimes, I mean, ideas are indeed worth a lot, right? And so if somebody's a good idea person and they're flexible with their idea and they're willing to work with others on the development of their idea, that can be a pretty good early stage partner to work with. Somebody that just happens to have a great idea. Maybe they don't have the capability to do it or realize it and need a technical team. Like and then they maybe just end up being the best salesperson for their own idea. It's extremely common to have kind of a non-technical co-founder, an idea kind of style person, and they find a technical co-founder more on the product delivery side that can do the engineering work necessary.
yeah, yeah. But uh, before we move off of this slide, just to think about um, um, uh, the sources of money that you're going to tap into as to scale your business really depend on the how your business is set up as an entity. So, when you set up your company, whether you set it up as a sole proprietor or a partnership with somebody, set it up as an LLC or even a social venture corporation,
Mhm.
social purpose corporation in this state. It's still an LLC kind of structure. Whether you set it up as a nonprofit or even a co-op. I mean, really, the difference between all of those is what what's the source of investment money, and are how much do you need, where are you going to get it from? if
Yeah.
you're if you're expecting to get government grants for money, you likely are going to need to set up as a not-for-profit type of organization,
Yeah.
because they don't typically issue grants to for-profit businesses.
Yeah.
Those end up being contracts, not
Yeah.
grants.
That's
uh,
a great point. Yeah,
so
I mean, I agree with that point. I think the spectrum is kind of like you just I operate as Eric Veal, right, as a sole proprietor. Like that's the low bar, no limited liability, et cetera, and so forth, and then all the way up to say a C corporation, and then Both Barry and I are involved in nonprofits, and I know like if you go 501(c)(3) route, which is a IRS classification, you can do it the little way, easy, and have a. But there is again, reach out to us if you guys had questions about just some of the basics of corporate structure. I feel like I've been around way too many forms of businesses. Like that's kind of like what the problem is. I think people become fixated on what's the right tool or mechanism of like how to incorporate or this kind of thing, and then never they kind of spin their wheels thinking about some business they could have. I think at some point you just got to have an entity and you got to start taking money or running business. You can't get stuck analyzing the right form of business you should have, but it is a pretty critically important decision. I mean, especially this nonprofit stuff I'm working on right now. It's like if we did the form 1023 EZ, it like there's it's just certain limitations that come with that mechanism. But if you went higher, then you kind of don't have those limitations. But your results may vary in how rigorous you need to be. I've gotten a C corporation before and just closed it before because it's just too much headache, too much overhead.
Yeah. Tom made a good point about, rolling over or changing. Yeah, it's way easier to, set it up correctly from the beginning. So, just make sure that you have a really good plan or idea of what kind of flexibility do you need and expect for
Yeah.
the sources of money, because that's the critical issue, um, about, well, two things: the sources of
Yeah.
money and the ownership issue.
Right.
And in any of the flavors of not for profit or nonprofit, you really don't. There is no ownership. I mean, the entity owns things, but you can't transfer that ownership to individuals. That's, one of the defining characteristics of that. So if
And I good.
yeah, if you're going to create a not for profit, you're creating something that's you should, either serve a, temporary purpose, or setting up something that's going to outlive you and you're going to transfer on, but walk away. That's not your retirement plan. There,
Yeah.
that right. Whereas, most of the other entities, you'll have some kind of stake in the business, and you'll be able to walk away and transfer that ownership, and walk away with um, some cash in your pocket, or some
Yeah.
kind of income, some annuity of some kind on the
I,
back end.
I also think there's a right fit. We can move on. I just want to sneak this point in is there's kind of a right
Yeah.
fit. Like my company right now that I'm running is an LLC that I've had since 2007. And that's like good enough for me. It's an S corp federally. Like I kind of know how to do it. And there's other entity, like a C corp or whatever that there's just it's a different kind of animal and I'm not doing that right now, and I'm kind of at peace with that. But maybe I'd partner with somebody that does have some grand big C corp and figure out how to kind of come in as a partner to that. But don't. I think kind of find the entity that fits you best if
Mhm.
possible. Okay, next slide. Barry, you want to take this one?
Oh, yes. So, okay. So definitely, tap into your own network, or tap into others' network, of people that have been there, done that, along the way. There are, there's probably somebody in the industry that, is ahead of you in the development that, you admire, and you want to speak to, or it could be a completely different industry that just have a great relationship with somebody that started a business 10 years ago, and now they've been very successful, and strike up a relationship with them, and let them just kind of pick their brain and help them kind of guide you along. There's all kinds of online resources, local business groups that you can participate in, like Rain, and other groups locally where you are. Um, the other thing that, is to that we forget about, is to tap into your customers. Make sure that you've got a really good two-way communication going with your customers about what they're getting for their money, and what makes them come back, and are they really coming back, or is it a one-time buy? And if you're expecting them to return, why aren't they? So, find out what those what they're thinking. Don't just guess, but ask the question. What keeps you coming back? And then again, as we talked about earlier, is look for opportunities to create collaborative relationships with other complementary type of businesses that maybe share the same perfect prospect as you do. For instance, a good example might be um, a business coach that specializes in finance and calls on CEOs, has a referral partner who's an attorney, and they both call on the same size companies and style of companies or industry. Maybe they call on manufacturing companies, and finding those kinds of resources along the way. And really, it just takes the right thought process to keep your mind open and ask the question, who do you know? Who do you know that can help me do this? Who do you know that can provide that for me? And who do you know that it is getting me access to whatever it is I need?
One of the harder issues I've seen with this slide is people I've suffered this in the past many times is kind of when I've got a day job, say for example, I had to go back and take a job and I had to quit my entrepreneuring for a minute, quit product development for a moment and go take a job. There are actually, in my opinion, a lot of moonlighters in that have day jobs and people that kind of have, stealth side projecty things that they're doing while they're employed by the man and, getting their medical insurance and their benefits and hanging tight with their day job. But, those kind of people, they have to be pretty stealth and pretty secretive about what they're doing. I know some people, um, where I think that's probably pretty hard for them. They've got their day job, they've got this side project idea, and like, how can they really grow? And so I think some of the coaching for them is like my dad had advice for me way back when, like, don't quit your day job. Don't cut over to self-employment until you kind of have to or are ready. And so a couple years ago, that my time kind of came, and I'm fully invested in that now and proud of that. But anyway, there is support out there for people, and just definitely reach out to me or Barry or other people on this call for help. And there's a lot of support. I think that's the point.
Yeah, and for me, I'm looking for support on how to be retired. I just
There you
can't
go.
stop working. Yeah,
There
I
you
got
go.
a I got a great life up here in Skagit County, and enjoy the boating that we're doing. Just can't get enough of it. Just
Yeah.
too busy finding other things to do. All right.
All right, so this one is sounds loaded. This is kind of the devil's advocate type of question for our talk is should I really waste my own money on my own business? I've decided to. Whether it's waste or not waste, it's just how I'm wired, and it's what I want to spend my money on. I was asked recently, if I got $1 million and had to spend it in a week, what would I do? And I think the answer is I'd put it into my business, like I'd spend it on my business because it feels like an investment. So that's kind of how I think about it. But just a few of the points here. Investing in your own business isn't necessarily a waste of money. It's fueling an asset that you control. Obviously your results may vary, not the success rate on small businesses is very low. So, we aren't telling you to spend or waste your own money on your own business, but if you're compelled to develop something, do it. Like it's your life, and why not be creative? Why not run a creative enterprise? Bootstrapping gives you full ownership. There's obviously a benefit, reducing reliance on investors. So this is the full control thing. And Barry and I are saying, or it's at least my opinion, like working with other people through partner and finding like economics within your workable economics within your social network and building that kind of human capital within your network is like, in my opinion, kind of the way to do it. You want friends in business, you want friends that are doing business, people that can support you, people that recognize that, oh, look, you're half employed and I can get you up to the higher level and keep the individuals kind of ball rolling and bankrolled so that they can keep working on their pet projects and their dream and mission. Early funding from personal savings allows strategic, flexible growth. Again, we're also saying here customers and stuff. It doesn't have to be your own money. It's just like find a way to get money to work on the ideas that you want to work on. Prioritizing lean spending. Definitely, my dad has a saying, it's not what you make, it's what you spend. I was kind of laughed at that, but it is half true. It's you can be too tight, penny wise, pound foolish, but being smart with your money and, maybe instead of buying the Lexus, you buy the Toyota or the bicycle and or, you know, eat out less, whatever that might be. Long-term
Yeah.
payoff can be financial independence and greater reward. So it is this kind of like control versus flexibility thing. And we're not proposing like people to become megalomaniacs over their own domain. It's like finding a way to share with other people and in what you're doing and build a community that, supports entrepreneurship and all that.
And my version of the saying your dad had is it's not what you make, it's what you keep.
Right.
And right, and which goes to the profit side, because once you get to the profit, then you've got all kinds of flexibility of what you do with it and where you go. I mean, you to reinvest it in the business, pay down whatever debt you have, or just take it home and use it. It's ultimately creating wealth, and in a sense, you can look at that creating wealth for your customers in a sense too, and
Yeah,
they're
it's definitely true.
especially if you broadly define wealth as the value or benefit they get from whatever product and service that you have.
Yeah, that's another one I learned from Barry actually recently. The question is, it's especially in a business to business kind of services sort of thing or product to business things, is the question is not necessarily like what's your customer's problem, it's what's your customer's customer problem, right? So like I work with, say, a manufacturer of solar panels, solar equipment, and so it's ultimately, this supply chain question of what are the problems that their customers actually face. If you really zoom in on what's the migraine level pain that somebody has and why is that place in business in the first place, just to be a better advisor. And I think we can kind of be short-sighted in like, oh, look, that company has a lot of money, therefore they could pay me as a supplier. But if you're not really focused on their best interests and outcomes related to their business, related to their customers and their success, you're not going to last very long. Probably you get found out pretty quickly as a short timer or somebody that doesn't really care, just extracting money. All right. Barry, want to take this one?
Uh, Okay, so yeah, we've kind of touched on some of these already in the conversation on the last slide.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
that's true.
yeah, it pretty much speaks for itself. I'm just kind of
I
scanning
think we
through
got this one. This feels a little
Yeah, hang on,
redundant
just
at this point. I
hang
think
on here.
we've heard the benefits, right? It's like more
Okay,
control.
yeah, but okay, so here we'll go back because
Yeah,
there's one word on here that we haven't talked about is resilience,
yeah,
and I tell you, bootstrapping requires a tremendous amount of resilience,
yeah.
and think about all the challenges you're going to have, and I illustrate resilience to people, thinking of it like the shock absorbers on a car. That well, no matter whether it's a curb or a pothole that you're in uh, coming upon on the road, and as you go along, the suspension system actually helps keep a smoother ride, and the resilience in being able to deal with what's coming at you is just like that. Having them have part of it's mindset, part of it's just taking care of yourself, part of it is surrounding yourself with the people that can help you with that, and having the ability to anticipate what those might be. And if you're going down a path that you've never been before, you'll be a lot more resilient and resistant to damage to uh, your business if you surround your people with it that have been there, done that,
Yeah.
and really important. So, find that inner resilience in yourself, and bootstrapping is not for the the what's the opposite of resilient? The
Faint of
rigid,
heart.
yeah, rigid people that
Oh,
don't,
fragile.
yeah,
Yeah.
fragile. That's another good one, right? Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's
I think like related to what Barry's saying there, mine on that one is like it's kind of like keeping the candle burning. I'm trying to, I guess I have one idea I've been working on for over a decade now, and I keep working on it. It's just like kind of I released parts of it, but not all of it, and I keep working on it. So I just keep the lights on that. Maybe that doesn't make me a serious entrepreneur. Maybe I could have capitalized that thing long ago, but at least for me, I think it's fine to have hobby style projects that you keep the light on, even if you had to go work on something else or take a day job or have a kid or get married or take a vacation or whatever. It's like finding a way to continue to prioritize entrepreneurship and your own creativity and your own business development efforts and not feeling like you ever have to shut it fully down is kind of how I feel about it. And I mentioned some people that are kind of stuck working in corporate America because it's good money and all that, but I know that they're would love to get out of there and work on their own ideas and not somebody else's. And I think there's paths for people like that. All right. Next question. I think as far as timing for the rest of our talk, we've got until 11:30, so we still have like 37 minutes left roughly. And seems like at about 11 we can do more discussion style is kind of what I'm thinking as far as our flow. So kind of get
Yep.
your questions ready and we can turn it into more of a forum here, just Q&A at the end and just an open discussion. So looking forward to that. But a few more slides first, so hang in there. Thanks everybody. What do I give up if I take outside funding? So these are kind of the downsides of what do you lose if you go the other way. So to a degree, you lose control. Even if I took a loan from a bank, I got to pay it back, and I'm on the annuity in my monthly payment to pay that thing back, and I effectively work for the bank. Loss of control, investors may influence decisions. May influence. I don't know how they couldn't, like it's definitely a part of your stakeholder ecosystem and people to whom you're accountable. So it can't not affect your brain, I would think. Equity dilution, so you're potentially losing equity. You don't have to. You could do rev share stuff. You don't always need to give up out equity like candy. So, try to be tight with that stuff if you can. Some startups are good at employee stock option programs and all that kind of stuff. But there's other ways to do it other than giving away equity. For example, it could be a prestige job. It could be a prestige client. It could be, just good revenue for somebody. Pressure for rapid growth, that's just part of the expectations. Look, I'm going to give you money. I want a 10x and by then, so you're on somebody else's treadmill, roughly speaking. Similarly, investor expectations and then restricted autonomy. It's just like, whether it's good or great to be purely bootstrapping. I think we all feel the pain as bootstrappers here and know that it's not a panacea, but it can be good and get better. And I'm just kind of again like feel fortunate to currently, knock on wood, be in this kind of growing mindset, and that feels great. And but with investors and outside money, you both get the capability of cash and capital to spend on projects or whatever it may be, but you got to be a little bit more rigorous. It's just a different story. Barry, anything you'd want to add to this one?
No, that was good.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, Barry, you want to do this one?
Yeah. So how can we make it last? You know, certainly, even before having a strong foundation is, be sure to have a good plan, validate it along the way with the people that you've surrounded yourself with. And so from that you've got good, sustainable or good foundation of business operations and grow with those. Let's see. Um, some of the be careful not to grow too fast. I mean, the lesson I learned the hard way in my business life is to not get so far over your skis, and financially extended, that you become less resilient financially. And I ran a promotional products company. We had 15 employees at its peak, and this was the peak was late 2007. Then 2008 hit, and every one of our customers that bought promotional products from us, including apparel, zipped up their wallets because the economy was tanking, and they stopped buying all that stuff, which put us in a precarious position. And prior to that, we had been growing. We'd been basically doubling our revenue every year, and we were all positioned to double it again from 2.5 to $5 million in revenue next year. And because we had made some investments that we just couldn't recover from, we ended up having to close the business, and it was painful. It was, not fun, but pay attention to the markets in the future, the bigger picture, as well as the stuff that's going on within the business. So again, it comes back to surrounding yourself with the people that support what you're doing, but don't necessarily have the same skill set. It's not an echo chamber that you want to
Yeah,
create. It's, good, honest,
that's right.
coaches, mentors,
Yeah,
business experts along the way that are going to fill the gap and make you so much smarter and more
yeah.
successful than you are on your own.
Yeah, I think I would add there is business and I guess life to that point is about uncertainty, and uncertainty has a form that's risk and negative potential impact and losing your money and losing your business or going out of business. There's the risk side, so it is good to surround yourself with people who are honest and straight shooting and risk averse and all that kind of stuff, but you don't want to be surrounded by a wet blanket 24/7, with people that are kind of destructive to your ideas or beliefs or whatever, or such kind of Luddites or sticklers or traditionalists that they can't see what you're up to. And then on the flip side, you also don't want to surround yourself with people exclusively that just say, yeah, 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 great, 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 good, good, good,
Mhm.
and then you just hit the wall at 60 miles an hour. So
Right.
you need to build your own ecosystem really that supports you honestly and truthfully about who you are and what you do, and from a business perspective, it is about cash management. I think in the end, it's like, do I have the cash to pay another month? Like, am I comfortable in going into debt or not? If I'm not, what do I do? And so it's really this planning thing. I think it's like spinning a new plate that a lot of people choose not to spin in their life. They're like, no, too risky, too scary, too etc. And I'm kind of arguing you can start with a little and work your way up to a lot is what we're kind of proposing here, possibly.
Yeah. So some of it, is playing the what if game, right? It's, what if this happens? What if that happens? You know, what if I break my leg and I can't, can't work, or, whatever, something happens, and what if I lose this or that? And, it's um, those are interesting conversations to have with people. Even with, I've been having conversations with the owners of businesses with 20, 30, and
Yeah,
50 employees. And,
right,
you know, the first question I ask is, what happens to the business if something happens to you?
right.
And some have a plan, and some, are really well situated, and others, will die quickly if they don't have figure it out, and they
Right.
don't have a plan. Right.
Yeah, it sounds to me like I mean, really, I guess what's going off in my brain is like you got to love business and you got to love business people, and like we should all see ourselves as friends and advisors to other people that are, taking similar risks to us, it's not everybody that's in this program or on this call right now that, chosen to be here and show up and work on their own business development, so we do have that in common and should think of ourselves as friends and compatriots of each other, not competition. So just a few quick conclusions, and then we're happy to just kind of debrief with you guys and understand what you're thinking and what questions you have. So, kind of how do you get started with this? Like, I think the answer is you're already starting, you're already started. You might be asking, how do I stop doing this and how do I start doing raising capital indeed, so that that's the flip side of this coin, but we're not here to advise you on that today. So how do you get started with bootstrapping and really I think building this like resilient attitude towards bootstrapping where you can balance product development, sales development, and ultimately conversion of your own investment in terms of your own sweat equity and everything else into profit. So mindset for sure. Again, lean thinking really matters. You just can't, if you're out of pocket for this stuff, you can't think big or wastefully. You got to find a way to kind of cobble stuff together, unfortunately. Definitely lean on your peers and friends and meet people like on calls like this to get to know other people that are doing it, understand their practices, tools, and methods of how to do it. Revenue first. I mean, that's definitely, my principle. And I think why I've had to quit entrepreneurship repeatedly throughout my career to just go take a job, make some money, build up my war chest, kind of like go back to trying to build a thing. And that's kind of what I've been doing. And but you got to get the money, you got to have the money. And if you have the money, you got to spend it, use it wisely and find more. And then the benefit, of course, like we've said, of just maintaining control. This, I'm not sure if this fits on this slide. Again, that's just more of a benefit, not how you get started, but it's your journey, and you got to lean into it like that and recognize that you have a lot of autonomy and a lot of agency in what you do. And then scaling smart, again, I think of this as with and through partner, find a support ecosystem that supports you in taking these kinds of risks or building that kind of business or being that kind of person, and validating demand with minimal viable offerings. This is the other thing, you can't come out with 100 things. Probably you need to find that migraine level pain and that person that's willing to pay, and figure out your role in relationship to them and how to sell to them, and realize that it is kind of a sales game too, not just delivery. You got to sell.
Yeah.
Barry, anything to add there?
Yeah, just on the one that doesn't seem like it fits, and maybe a better way to frame that is think about, instead of maintaining control, is to create a vision and communicate it clearly, right? So it has to do with setting the direction and hold and you know making sure that everybody that's involved with the organization understands it, buys into it, and is supporting it along the way, and not trying to undermine it. That
Yeah.
that would be a better place to, if you don't have a clear vision of where you want to be or where you want to go, then any road will take you there, and you can, but
Yeah.
yeah. And I think
And
the
I think
best.
also recognizing that there are exits to this, it doesn't have to become a compulsion like it might be for some of us.
Yeah,
And
right.
that you can stop and can just go take a day job or whatever it might be to kind of sober up, or or build security for yourself. Like, so there's nothing wrong with quitting bootstrapping per
Right.
se, and that there's also a way to again, like in that bootstrapping phase that you might be in, there's nothing wrong in making an investor deck or building that investment vehicle. But you just need to recognize like how thin you might be spread by trying to go it alone, for something that is kind of a moonshot, and figure out how to kind of partner up to be successful.
Yeah. So just a quick comparison. So Jeff Bezos and Amazon, he had a vision of what Amazon was going to be, and called it, his Amazonian, goal was to put commerce online. And, that's what his big goal was. Then flip that with the guys that started UPS, and who knew that, 120 years ago, that three guys that started delivering plates of food would create a business that would basically adapt to the changing landscape, and connect 48 states and the entire world via ground and air delivery systems.
Yeah.
And right, just, and all the complexities that go along with all of that.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing how, how these businesses take on their own life and their own, and death too, because some, what would the world be like if Blockbuster was still around? So some just don't survive, they don't evolve and don't
Yeah.
survive, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to like see time humbly or something. Like I just wrote into the river about this strategy diamond tool, which is like it's economic logic. Like, what's your economic logic? And then there's vehicles that you can invest in, including yourself as an entrepreneur and your products that you're making. Arenas, what arenas are you going to be in? And then what are your differentiators? But this whole like resilient mindset is a big part of it, and just being receptive to help and receptive to development input along the way, and doing that safely and securely. So, just a few last kind of thoughts on of just observational stuff. Again, sorry, we're going. Happy to talk to you guys in a bit here. So, use the three conversions again. That's converting from kind of a concept to a real product that you can sell, or an MVP at least, but make something real. And then converting the market at large or prospects at large to customers indeed that pay and hopefully pay on a recurring basis, for example. And then finally this profit conversion of from investment and spending money and all your sweat equity or whatever into profit indeed. So that's what we're proposing today, is just thinking at a high level about business strategy and how you can be a better business strategist for your own life and business. Followed by aligning your people. So again, like think in your network. If you're a product person, or you're a finance person, or you're the salesperson, recognize that you might be best doing that, and maybe doing that like mostly, and that there might be a couple other people in your network that can balance you out in ways that are important. And so finding that kind of co-founder team, or at least like core team. You can still be a solopreneur in that context, but be partnered with two external entities that do the things that you don't do well, and that those are good suppliers or partners to you. Barry, you want to land us here?
Yeah, last one I just wanted to is don't be number four, don't be afraid to, make mistakes and,
I like that one.
and recover from your mistakes, so, be a, and the phrase I use is be a failure, not a failure. Very different, and especially in context of Thomas Edison, who, you know, tried, 1,000 different materials and combinations of things to come up with the light bulb before
Yeah,
he landed on the right one. And it wasn't that he really was a failure. He just learned what wasn't the right one. And, process of elimination, same kind of thing. Just, be resilient and, don't, things are going to happen. Take it, move on. Right.
yep. Yeah, so I think we're kind of like, if you guys would like, well, so real quick, thank you to our sponsors. So I'm Eric. My company's AppsJack. Barry helps me with that considerably. So thankful for his help. This Rain Catalyst is the program that's providing the Tech Accelerator, and so many of the people that are on the call today are through Rain Catalyst Tech Accelerator program for software startups. And then some of the funding has been provided by Washington State Micro Enterprise Association, that wants to help Washington State small businesses become bigger. And so hopefully this education has been helpful to you. I think, should we keep the recording going?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, sounds good. So let's debrief now. Again, thanks to everybody for being here. If anybody'd like to come off mute. Of course, we're willing to take praise and thank yous. Also, criticism and feedback is welcome as well. And but if anybody just wanted to debrief, we got about 20 minutes to chat, meet the other people that are in the audience today, and just say hi or ask a question.
Hey, Eric and Barry, I have a question,
Sure.
or maybe just asking for your commentary on this.
Yeah.
I've been around people who have done bootstrapping, and some successful, and I think followed a lot of your advice. So I think it's excellent advice. I certainly resonate with it. Um, your comment on, but I also have been around people who almost sort of have an eBay um, uh, sort of auctioning kind of way about them. They
Mhm.
get their bootstrapping done, and then they just can't give it up. And I have a friend who mortgaged his house, another one who drove himself into a divorce because of the way he was spending money on his business.
Yeah.
And how do you keep, what would be your advice to keep kind of some degree of sanity,
Yeah, that's a good point.
about it?
Yeah,
Because again, I have seen real examples of otherwise very
yeah,
reasonable, very measured people just like doing the silliest things,
yeah,
ending up in life changing for the worst situations. They lost their
yeah.
house, they lost their marriage, that sort of thing, because success was just around the corner if they could only do this. And, there were way more corners than a square.
Yeah.
Understood. Yeah, no, that
Yeah.
makes sense. I guess my quick one on that, then to you, Barry, is thanks, Jerry. It's a great question. I guess my tip about it, this would maybe also kind of be self-talk, is to create an established fund or savings account for your business spending and to leave it at that and or cap it at that. But I think it's to be this fiduciary of your own life and recognize that, we could spend, 50 grand on a car, or we could spend 50 grand on a business, venture, and the car is going to depreciate and et cetera, and you're going to sell it for 25 grand or whatever. And the business money, it's either going to go up or it's going to go down, and you kind of don't know. But anyway, I think that's maybe the only tip, Jerry, I can think to say with respect to what you're saying is, A, you're a fiduciary of your own life, and you better recognize it as such, more so than an addict. And then B, you can create a fund and manage a fund and you're in that way, you are this fiduciary of your own life. You do kind of have to be your own treasurer. I think it's maybe a do not pass go. Like if you're going to spend on product and you're going to spend on customer, aka marketing and sales and cost of sales, um, you better have a good financial plan before you go. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, so for me, there were two things that kind of struck me just in your description, Jerry. One is that I've known people that in my life that have started business or running businesses, and they're very transactionally oriented, very now oriented. It's almost their personality is such that they need immediate gratification, whether it's just by a specific transaction and that sale, and then they got all this money and they go out and then buy something, and they're very impulsive about the way they do things. And and then the flip side of that is the people that are very long-sighted, and squirreling money away at every chance they get, and those seem to be the ones that are successful. That they in defensive driving, you talk about aim high and steering, and really what's that? Is keep your eye on the and behave like you're driving the long haul and not a sprint everywhere you go, burning up your fuel and all along the way. So and I don't know if that helps, but humans are going to be humans, and all we can do is surround ourselves with people that are going to help us be as realistic and successful as we'll let them coach us along the way. But we're still our own people, and we're going to make our own decisions, right or wrong, that seem to work for us at the time.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. Thank you. Thank you, both of you. I think, Eric, I resonate very much with, create a fund and just keep it, sort of like,
Yeah. Cap it.
going to Vegas, right? I mean, you have a certain amount of
Exactly.
money in your pocket you're willing to just, throw out on
Yeah.
the street, and,
Yeah, don't have a credit line on the
that's all
far
you
end of
got,
that.
you know?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. I think, yeah, build a fund and regulate the
Yeah.
fund, and
Yeah.
build a budget and regulate the budget. But yeah,
Yeah, it just was heart-wrenching to see otherwise, responsible adults that pay their taxes, that take
yeah,
their kids to soccer practice and everything else, really destroy their lives
yeah,
around a venture that, they almost had sort of like, you use the right word, addictive
yeah.
kind of view about it. And they just lost all kind of rational thinking,
There can be a lot of like ego, I think, in that kind of scenario.
yeah.
If somebody's coming from wealth, say for example, and
Hmm.
has a dream and starts to
Yeah.
spend on the dream, but they don't have the social skills, they don't have the business skills,
Right.
they don't have
Right.
humility, they don't have anything. They're not
Yeah.
a
Well,
good
that, yeah.
manager, for example. Like I can
Yeah.
imagine that being bad.
Yeah. Yeah, that's yeah, that's a somewhat different view.
Yeah,
but the thing is, we can all sort of say, hey, that sounds so crazy to, lose your marriage and your house. That would never be me. But, I would have bet those people would have never have done that,
yeah.
5 years before they did it.
Well, yeah, I mean, the other thing that could be said about that is just prioritization. If you prioritize the future or your idea or whatever above, the product above people, for example, if it is about the dream and the vision, and you bulldoze your way through people and through money to get to your end, whatever your end is, that's not a good
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks.
Yeah, appreciate it. Anybody else with questions or comments, or would like to share their own experience as a bootstrapper, their own frustrations as a bootstrapper?
I guess I just interject with a question I put in earlier in the chat.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm noticing a lot of mom and pop, a lot of small local service companies in the skilled trades and other areas being bought up in a firestorm just the last 2 years or so.
Yeah.
And I presume a lot of those companies were bootstrappers and operated as such for maybe even decades. You know, I think there's this idea of, you know, in the startup world, the tech world of every company needs to have an exit.
Yeah.
And I guess, you know, it's what, you know, I don't know if this is just a hallmark of certain industries, but like, you know, where does an exit make sense versus where is its stability and longevity and community and ecosystem niche. So yeah, what does exit mean to a bootstrapper?
Well, that's a good point. I think like one way to talk about that maybe is like sharks and minnows. I think it's Steve Rauner that was on this call that he uses that metaphor to describe, you know, you picture Shark Tank versus those that go on Shark Tank. You know, so the Shark Tank hosts versus the minnows and people that are trying to get stuff, you know, and that there is a dog eat dog competitive world out there. I mean, a story about my life is like my dad ran a brass manufacturing brass foundry thing in Anacortes area locally for decades and eventually went out of business. He tried to exit and sell to his employees and he couldn't figure that transition out. And then there was just, I think, probably too much competition from everything. And so, yeah, I mean, I think to your point, right? It's like be proactive and have the end in mind, but I think you also can't have that um, prevent you maybe from starting. I might not have a great answer on that. Ushel, I see your hand up. Is that the next question, or is that you want to join?
Before we jump off of this,
Yeah,
I
sure.
have a just thought.
Please.
Yeah, I've been dealing with a lot of business owners that are, you know, thinking about exit,
Yeah.
and they tend to want to hang on too long. You know, the conversations I'm having are with people that want to exit within a year, and you know, when I start quizzing them about the, you know, what they've done to prepare for it, they realize that that's going to be more like 5 or 7 years before they're really ready to make a successful exit.
Right.
And I think that's one of the reasons why we're seeing a lot of private equity coming in, regardless of what the industry is that they're coming in and consolidating businesses and looking for opportunities like that because they can get that they've got the infrastructure to come in and fix the problems, you
Yeah.
know, kind of get a fire sale on a business that way. So that's just kind of my experience and kind of echoes, I think, you know, what what you've seen as well, Tom.
I mean, another word to add to that problem, right, is just I think like the naivete or like just the addiction word again there, like kind of what Jerry brings up as an issue of like not all ideas are created equally, not all entrepreneurs are created equally, and you know, not all ideas are good, and not all businesses are going to be successful. So just having a firm grip on the wheel and you got to manage and mitigate risk. You know, I think it can't just be about opportunity and get rich quick. And I think those are like attitudes and people you might meet where I think, you know, we all kind of maybe have recently been around some people that might be like that kind of a get rich quick, like how can I do this? And that might work in certain ecosystems and might even be a great way to raise funds or whatever. Who knows? I mean, it's really complicated. That's all I have to say about that. Ushal, question?
It's more of a comment from my
Yeah.
side. When you are bootstrapping, I think very, very helpful topic today. So thank you. One addition I think of is network is really comes very strong when you are bootstrapping and getting out of your own business and just showing up for other people's business is really strong. You make so genuine connections doing that way, like showing up to a conference and understanding what the other people's businesses are doing and how you can help has been like I think, very good networking. And for this boot camp, I really found that example, and I want to share that gratefulness. Like, for example, Eric has been my mentor in our group and already introduced me to a few people which I'm meeting this afternoon. That's an example of, I think, going above and beyond in terms of, building connections. I think those type of connections can be kind of tokens. Maybe it's not money, maybe it's not funding, but they are so valuable. And I'm so grateful to have found such community with these accelerators.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, one additional thing I want to share, I guess, about my journey here as an entrepreneur. I think when I was in my 20s, probably a lot of my ideas were like business to consumer sorts of ideas, pretty much like get rich quick things that I could do that'd be like a fast buck, but like didn't mean anything to me. It was just something that you could do to make money, and it kind of sounded funny to me, for example. And then probably, I don't know, 15 years ago, I decided like business to business was a better feel for me. And that's some of the feedback I've given Ushul is like to have a products business is great. It takes a lot of capital to get to that product or MVP that you can market and sell. I mean, it's expensive, frankly. But to get to that place where you have the network or the gravitas or the capital or the network, sorry to say network twice, but it really is about people in my opinion, and you never know who you're going to meet on any given day. So I think really appreciating those that are around us that feel like they want to help us. And that's one maybe last thing I'll say about like my dad's attitude, for example. I think he was never, he's still alive and well, but he was never a very trusting person of professionals. Like he was that kind of blue collar guy that got rich by working really hard or did really well for a really long time, but then never had the social skill or the trust or faith to transition his business. And just to call out then to Tom's comment in the our chat here about a need not just for accelerators and starting things, but also transitioning, winding them down. What would it be like for Rain, for example, to have a program that took mature businesses and put them in a cohort to help people wind their businesses down safely and sanely, because the energy goes up and the energy comes down, and it's all about economic development in the end, so, or money. But that's a good comment, Tom.
Hey, thanks.
You bet. Any additional comments or questions about bootstrapping, its challenges, its pitfalls, how to stay out of it, how to get into it? All right. Well, I think we'll let you guys go. Definitely appreciate everybody's time today, and thanks for listening. Again, I'm Eric Veal, and this is Berry Zimmerman with me. We're both with AppsJack up in the Skagit County, Washington State. This talk was brought to you by Rain Catalyst and the Washington State Micro Enterprise Association. So we're thankful for their support and look forward to seeing you around soon. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.